Hello friends, this is Dr. Vishal from Team MST, and today in our series of FOSSO discussions, we will be discussing about clubfoot, which is cased in the final year examinations. So to start with, what is clubfoot? Why the name derived? What is the pathogenesis? What is the treatment involved? What are the complications if at all not treated? So we will be looking into the various aspects in our following discussion. So before going to clubfoot, we should know something about the normal anatomy of the leg and foot. The foot is divided into three quadrants. So what are the three quadrants? As we all know, the foot is divided into forefoot, midfoot and the hindfoot. So what is the forefoot? All the metatarsals and the phalanges will contribute to the forefoot. All the tarsal bones except talus and calcaneum will contribute to the midfoot, while talus and calcaneum will contribute to the hindfoot. So in this discussion, consider this as my foot and this as my leg. So throughout this, I will be explaining the concepts with this. Then comes your movements. So what are the movements that are occurring in the ankle joint? So whatever movement that is occurring in the vertical direction, it is of two types. If the foot moves towards the ground, it is called as plantar flexion. If it moves towards the sky vertically, that is called as dorsiflexion. So these are the two vertical movements. Then comes your horizontal movements. So the movement of the foot towards your body, that is called as adduction, and the movement of the foot away from your body, that is called as abduction. Then comes your inversion. So what is inversion? That is the inward toeing of the plantar sole. That is called as inversion, and the outward facing is called as eversion. So this adduction and inversion together contribute to the varus deformity. So why should we read about clubfoot? As we all know, clubfoot is the most common congenital foot deformity that occurs in children. It contributes to the epidemiology of about 1 in every 1,000 newborns, with male on the higher side compared to the female, ratio of 2:1. Whenever a clubfoot occurs in a child, it occurs bilaterally, that is both legs are affected in about 50%. So what causes clubfoot? Before knowing it, why the term clubfoot was coined? As you all know, you might have seen the patients of clubfoot. The deformity will be like this. This is the ankle and this is the foot. So as you can see, it's almost like an L shape. This L shape resembles the golf bat, which is called as clubs. So the deformity looks similar to golf bat, hence the name clubfoot. So what causes clubfoot? Although the most common cause is idiopathic, you all know the genetic association associated with it, which is the most commonly asked MCQ question. So which is the PITX and TBX4 gene. Various theories are put forward to explain the concept of clubfoot. The various theories that are being proposed are the myogenic theory, the neurogenic theory, and the intrauterine pressure theory. But universally, the most commonly affected and the most commonly accepted theory is the germplasm theory, which says that talus being so small will get displaced from the talonavicular joint. Due to the displacement of the talonavicular joint, the associated muscles overacts. So that causes, for example, the tendo Achilles, if overacting, will cause a plantar deformity, that is the equinus deformity, while the tibialis posterior, when overacting, will cause the varus deformity. So that's why the name is referred to as CTEV, congenital talipes equinovarus. So congenital means right from birth, talipes is a Latin word which means tali meaning ankle, pes meaning foot. Then comes your equinus deformity, which is due to the overacting of the plantar tendo Achilles, and the varus deformity, which is due to the overacting of your tibialis posterior. So knowing the pathogenesis, come, let's discuss about the deformities. So as I told you, the horizontal movements that are occurring towards your body is called as adductors, and that where your sole faces inward is called as inversion. These both together are termed as varus deformity. Then comes your equinus deformity. It will be like a equine foot. There will be plantar flexion of the foot. So then comes your cavus deformity. So what is cavus? As you can see, the foot will be like a cave. So why this cave occurs is the plantar flexion, that is the hyperplantar flexion of your first metatarsal bones, while all the other metatarsal bones are normal. So normally the foot is like this, but in case of cavus deformity, due to the hyperplantar flexion of the first metatarsal, you get a cavus deformity, and that causes an increase in the medial longitudinal arch of your body. So these are the 4 deformities that usually occur in the clubfoot. So then coming to the classification of the types of clubfoot, it is classified according to the deformities into 3 types. So when a clubfoot occurs in an isolated condition, it is called as a congenital idiopathic clubfoot. And when it occurs secondary to certain syndromes like arthrogryposis complex and various other syndromes, it is called as a syndromic clubfoot, also called as a secondary clubfoot. So why to classify these types? When a congenital idiopathic clubfoot occurs in isolation, the prognosis is very good. While in case of syndromic, it's very bad. It takes numerous castings and it will take a delayed course. And another one which comes under here is the postural clubfoot. Whenever a baby is born, the baby's foot will appear like a clubfoot, but it is not a clubfoot. It just looks like it due to the posture. That is called as a postural clubfoot. Then according to the treatment, it is classified into 7 types. So when a newborn baby is born and it is not treated and the age is less than 2 years, that is called as an untreated clubfoot. When the baby is treated of all the deformities, it is called as a treated clubfoot. Then comes the resistant clubfoot, where in spite of severe corrections, the deformities will never correct, and that is called as a resistant clubfoot. While all the deformities are corrected, then it reoccurs. That is called as a relapse. A neglected clubfoot is one where the baby is neglected. It is not even considered for treatment for more than 2 years. That is called as a neglected treatment. And what you should remember is a complex clubfoot is one where the baby is treated by methods other than the Ponsonby technique like Kite's method. So we will be looking at it in the coming slides. So these are the classification of clubfoot. So now we have completed the classification, how to identify the deformities. In the ultrasound, it can be detected as early as in the 16th week. But what we do, we just do most early inactivity. We don't have to do anything. Let the baby get delivered and then we can look after the clubfoot. So how to remember the mnemonics for the deformities? Just remember it as cave. Cavus, adductus, inversion and equinus. So these are the 4 deformities that usually occurs in the clubfoot. So knowing all these deformities, now you have clinically identified the patient. Then you have to do a scoring and the clinical test. So what is a dorsiflexion test? Normally the sole, the dorsum of the foot of the baby should touch the shin of tibia. As you can see in the picture, the dorsum of foot is touching the shin of tibia. Normally this is present, but when the dorsiflexion is less than 20 degrees, it's a diagnostic criteria for a clubfoot. Then how to assess the deformities and how to severe the prognosis? We have 2 gradings, and the most common associated condition for a clubfoot is neural tube defect, such as spina bifida occulta and metatarsus adductus. Just remember neural tube defects. That is the most common associated condition. Then comes your scoring methods. You have 2 scoring. One is clinical and another one is radiological. So Pirani score is the most commonly followed one, which is clinical type. Just remember it consists of 2 scores, the midfoot score and the hindfoot score. Each score consists of 3 points, and each 3 points will have a score ranging from 0 to 1. More the score, worse the deformity. The score ranges from 0 to 6. Just remember it has 2 scores, 0 to 6. More the score, worse the deformity. That's it. Then coming to the Demiglio scoring, just remember the word Demiglio, it's a radiological criteria. So these are the various scores used in Pirani scoring, which you just need to have a look at. And then comes your radiological assessment. So is radiological assessment really necessary? Not at all. when the baby is presented to you with less than 2 years, the food bones of the baby will never even get ossified, so you cannot even look at it for an X-ray. When the baby is presented more than 2 years only, we can take an X-ray and we can identify the deformity for which plane the deformity should be corrected. So that is the radiological assessment, and then comes your PG point of view, which is the talocalcaneal angle, also called as the Kite's angle. So this angle normally is drawn between the talus and the calcaneum. This angle varies between 30 to 55 degrees. When the Kite's angle is less than 25 degrees, it indicates a varus. Then comes your Meary's angle, which is the talo-first metatarsal angle. Normally, this is between 15 to 5 degrees. When this is reduced, the deformity is erectus. So coming to the investigation point of view, then comes our treatment. So when to start the treatment? The treatment can be started as early as the first day of life. There is no point in delaying the treatment. And also there are two modes of treatment. One is the surgery and another one is the conservative. In the early 1960s, let's go back to the history, everyone treated clubfoot as surgical management. What they achieved was immediately fruitful good results. But when they were followed for 20 to 30 years, they all suffered from recurrence of the deformities due to fibrosis, and everyone had painful foot. So the surgery was obviously deferred. Then comes your conservative mode of treatment. So the first pioneer was Hiram Kite. What he did was, he suggested each deformity should be corrected one by one, sequential correction of the deformities. And MCU point of view, he kept his fulcrum at the calcaneocuboid joint. As we can see in the picture, this is the calcaneocuboid joint, and what happened is, he kept his finger at the calcaneocuboid joint and he tried to abduct. What happened was, the calcaneum, since he kept his finger at the calcaneum was never completely abducted. So only when the abduction deformity is completed, the equinus can be corrected. So Hiram Kite took almost 22 months for a baby to correct each and every deformity. And also his excellent results was not actually followed. His results were not even got by other professors who did the same treatment. So that led to a failure method. Then comes the gold standard Ponseti technique. So what Ponseti considered was, he considered the young fruits to a young tree. When you just bend it, it won't break, it just gives away. So this concept was made by Ponseti, where if you try to manipulate the infant's foot, it acts like a young tree. It won't break, it just gives away. So his aim of treatment was to provide a functional, pain-free, mobile foot without any callosities. So his treatment was based on two protocols. One is the corrective phase, and second one was to maintain the corrective phase. So let's go in Ponseti technique in detail. So what his theory was, the foot will act as one biomechanical unit. So what is one biomechanical unit means? If this is the forefoot, midfoot and hindfoot, if I move the forefoot, the midfoot will also move and the hindfoot will also move. So that is the kinematic coupling of foot. So he said there is no need for sequential correction of deformities. If you correct one deformity, the other deformity also will get corrected automatically. So his concept was based on this, and he achieved excellent results in short time. Short time means less than 2 months of time. So how did he manipulate? This manipulation was aimed at the fulcrum at the talonavicular joint. So how to locate this talonavicular joint clinically is, palpate the lateral malleolus, and just 1 centimeter anterior to the lateral malleolus is the lateral head of talus, and there lies the talonavicular joint. So he kept his one finger at the talonavicular joint. As you can see in this picture, this is the talonavicular joint, and he used the fulcrum as the first metatarsal. Then what he did was, he just abducted it, so the ligaments could stretch. So what Ponseti considered was, he considered the young fruits to a young tree. When you just bend it, it won't break, it just gives away. So this concept was made by Ponseti, where if you try to manipulate the infant's foot, it acts like a young tree. It won't break, it just gives away. So his aim of treatment was to provide a functional, pain-free, mobile food without any callosities. So his treatment was based on two protocols. One is the corrective phase and second one was to maintain the corrective phase. So let's go in Ponseti technique in detail. So what his theory was, the food will act as one biomechanical unit. So what is one biomechanical unit means? If this is the forefoot, midfoot and hindfoot, if I move the forefoot, the midfoot will also move and the hindfoot will also move. So that is the kinematic coupling of foot. So he said there is no need for sequential correction of deformities. If you correct one deformity, the other deformity also will get corrected automatically. So his concept was based on this and he achieved excellent results in short time. Short time means less than 2 months of time. So how did he manipulate? This manipulation was aimed at the fulcrum of the talonavicular joint. So how to locate this talonavicular joint clinically is palpate the lateral malleolus, and just 1 centimeter anterior to the lateral malleolus is the lateral head of talus, and there lies the talonavicular joint. So he kept his one finger at the talonavicular joint. As you can see in this picture, this is the talonavicular joint, and he used the fulcrum as the first metatarsal. Then what he did was he just abducted it so the ligaments could stretch. So in the first casting, you do the correction of cavus deformity. Since the cavus deformity will look like this due to the plantar hyperflexion of the first metatarsal, what you do is gently dorsiflex this first metatarsal so the forefoot and the midfoot will get aligned. After this, we apply an Aboni casting. So why do you apply an Aboni and why not a Belloni? As you can palpate your skin of the bone, it will be more like a flare with a triangle shape, but in the infant's leg, it will be more often like a rounded foot. So that's why the reason, to prevent the slip away and also to prevent tibial intorsion. Normally an adult or a normal child will have a tibial extorsion of about 40 degrees, but in case of clubfoot it will be reduced to tibial extorsion of 20 degrees. So just to prevent this tibial intorsion, we are doing this Aboni casting. Just remember, even in clubfoot there will be tibial extorsion of 20 degrees and there won't be tibial intorsion. Just to prevent it, we are putting the Aboni casting. So after the correction of the first deformity, we do the serial manipulation and then serial casting. After 4 to 6 casts, when the abduction is more than 60 degree, because only when the abduction is corrected, the eversion can be corrected. When the abduction is more than 60 degrees and when the midfoot score is almost corrected, but the hindfoot score remains high because of the equus deformity, we do a tendo Achilles tenotomy. A tendo Achilles tenotomy is done by two types. One is percutaneous, where you just do with a needle without opening it, and another one is the open, where you do with a blade. So whatever method it is, you just have to erase the tendon from the medial to the lateral side. So why this is important is, as you can see in the picture, in the lateral side of the tendon there lies the peroneal artery. So when you start the incision from there, you have more chances for damaging the peroneal artery. So that's why it's important to go from the medial to the lateral side. After doing a tenotomy, you put the baby for 3 weeks a casting. So far we have only done casting for 1 week. So suddenly why the 3-week duration? It's because when you do a complete tenotomy, you do a complete section of the tendo Achilles tendon. And histologically, for the tendon to regenerate for reunite, 3 weeks are needed. And that's why we do the casting for 3 weeks. So after correcting all the deformities, now we have to maintain the deformity. So this is a Steenbeck foot abduction brace which has to be worn 23 hours a day, almost an entire day for the first 3 months. Then gradually we should shift it to night times for the age of 4 to 5. Only when this is correctly worn, the deformity will never lapse. So to say something about this foot, it is designed in such a way that it maintains dorsiflexion of about 15 to 20 degrees, and in the affected leg, the external rotation will be about 70 degrees, while in the unaffected leg, it will be about 30 degrees. Just remember, this is an important MCQ point. In the unaffected leg, it will be 30. In the affected leg, it will be double, almost 70. So this has to be worn always. Then comes your French method, which is similar to Ponseti, but the manipulation and the casting is done daily, while in Ponseti it is done weekly. Since it is done daily here, the cost of the treatment is very high and also the patient's follow-up is very poor, because since they had almost everyone's job, they cannot spend some time daily to the hospital. So this method was eventually declined. So these are the various conservative methods. So whenever a baby comes to you for examination, for follow-up, you do check for the relapse. So whenever a deformity appears after complete correction, that is called as a relapse. So the relapse will occur in the reverse order of correction. So the last deformity to be corrected is your equinus. So the first to reappear will be your equinus. So equinus, varus, and then cavus. So these are the order of reappearance. So completing the conservative method of treatment, now comes the surgical method. Any baby is presented to you with club foot, you just start with conservative method. Only when the conservative method has failed for resistant cases, you go for surgery. When the baby's age is less than 3, only soft tissue procedures has to be done. When the baby's age is more than 4 to 5, in addition to the soft tissue, bony changes might have already occurred, so we should do a bony surgeries. So the soft tissue procedures are the posteromedial soft tissue release, where you release the posterior and the medial structures of the leg and foot. The Cincinnati circumferential incision, where you do all compartment release, and the Carroll's dual rod release, medial and the lateral side. So for bony procedures, for the varus deformity, just remember the names, that's enough, more than enough. Guy's osteotomy, Del1C1 procedure, and the Lisbro procedure. For equinus, we do a Z-plasty and the lumbar knee procedure. So this is the most important point. Just recall it and remember it. When all these 3 deformities are present for more than 10 years of age, you do a triple orthodesis, where you fuse all the joints just for the patient to be pain-free. So to just recall, a newborn baby is being born in the OG department, the pediatrician will do a complete head-to-toe examination, and he finds a deformity in the lower leg and foot. So he gives an ortho call-over, and you being the intern or a final year student, go and see the patient. You find a L-shaped deformity which looks like a club foot, that means a golf bat. So you think it may be a club foot. Then you do a dorsiflexion test which is positive less than 20 degrees. Then you rule out the other syndromes associated with club foot. You just look the bedside attenders. So they will be so worried about the condition. You explain to them, it's just conservative, just give me 2 months of time, I can get it corrected. You take the patient to the ortho OPD, you just do casting, about 2 to 4 casts or 5 casts needed to correct the forefoot and midfoot deformities, then do a tenotomy, then the baby's foot will be automatically corrected. Early detection and prompt treatment will play a major role in treating club foot.